Hello and welcome once again to INSEAD's Leadercast series. My name is Charles Galenick. I'm the Dean of the Executive MBA. It's a real pleasure to have with us today Mr. Greg Case. Greg is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Aon Corporation, the world leader in insurance and reinsurance brokerage. He will be interviewed today by Professor Javier Gimeno, who happens to be the Aon Dirk Verbeek Chair in International Risk Management and Strategy. Enjoy.
First of all, Greg, welcome to INSEAD.
Javier, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Greg, given your experience on the risk management field, I wanted to start with a question about leadership in the current situations. Leadership is an important topic. Many people talk about motivation, charismatic leadership, the role of the CEO in motivating individuals and getting the most of the corporation. Yet at the same time, in times of crisis, people tend to change the way they see leadership. There is a famous sentence of Lou Gessner, where right after taking over an IBM, he said, well, the last thing IBM needs is a new vision. So given your experience with companies in context of risk and uncertainty and crisis, what is your perspective about whether leaders should change their leadership style in a condition of uncertainty and risk?
Well, Javier, I'll give you a point of view and a perspective. I'm not going to say that it's the perfect perspective, but it's heartfelt in terms of how we think about this at Aon and how I've observed clients of ours around the world. Aon is a very global firm in 120 countries around the world. So as I've observed clients in this current situation, I'll give a few observations. First, from our perspective, from my perspective, I would come back to first principles. What are you trying to accomplish as a firm? Changing strategy, changing course in the time of crisis may exactly be the time not to do that. In fact, as we've thought about the current turmoil that our clients are going through, and they're suffering all around the world in difficult situations and difficult challenges, when we come back and think about Aon, and we've thought about this for the last 6 months as everybody else had, we come back to our guiding principles and have essentially reaffirmed those guiding principles. Principles around client leadership, principles around people, and principles around operational excellence. And those three principles have guided Aon for the last 4 years and guided Aon well. And what we've essentially said is, look, those are the things that are going to drive our success. And our success is going to be measured in terms of our client success. So at a time of crisis, it's often a time to reflect, step back, and understand what you're really trying to accomplish as a firm. And reaffirming that, for us, has been tremendously reassuring across our team. I can't imagine trying to change course in the context of a crisis. I can't imagine trying to recommunicate all the things you've got to do to communicate a vision, communicate a DNA, an approach that you think is going to be compelling for your firm. And in the case of Aon, the exact things that help us serve clients distinctively are going to be the same things in a crisis as they are in normal time. And we've reaffirmed those and driven those. And as a leader, it's really less about Greg Case. It's much more about my colleagues around the world who do all the real work to make Aon go.
How do you manage when your colleagues, your clients, the regulators are all worried about the situation? How you maintain that sense of direction when you are facing those external pressures from the company stakeholders?
Well, one thing is absolutely clear, absolutely vital, is coming back and saying, what is the sense of direction? Let's reaffirm what we're trying to accomplish as a firm. What are we really about? And in Aon's case, it's very much around serving clients. And we have a mantra or saying around Aon. We do about anything at Aon as long as it helps a client or helps a colleague help a client. And that means investing in intellectual capital. That means investing in new resources and capability. Almost anything we do has to come back to that grounding principle. And so for us, being able to describe that to regulators, being able to describe that to analysts, the investment community, being able to describe that to each other is actually incredibly vitalizing. It actually is a catalyst to reaffirm what we're about. We're about client service. We serve clients well. We do exceptionally well. If we don't, we don't. And it really grounds us into making sure we are focused on the right priorities. Not the urgent necessarily every day, but the important every day. And if we do that and we do that consistently, Aon is going to be served very well. Having conviction through our top leaders that what I just said was in fact reality, that's what drives momentum. That's what drives progress inside of Aon.
So what you do is try to identify on these moments of risk and crisis, identify the opportunity behind it. Then how do you communicate that opportunity in these times of risk?
Well, first, and again, back with Aon and with clients, we're in the risk business. This is what we do. Every day, essentially, we probably touch as many firms every day on the topic of risk than any firm in the world. We serve small firms, we serve middle-sized firms, we serve the largest corporations in the world, all around the globe. So that really puts us in a unique situation to watch how companies react. And I would tell you the companies, the firms that are most successful in these times see risk as an opportunity, not just as a downside. They see it as an opportunity to understand the situation better than their competitors, to take action in ways their competitors might not be taking action. And that's how Aon views this. You know, in essence, we look at it as there's a time in the global economy right now in which our clients need us more than ever. While it's tougher and more difficult out there, our clients need us more than ever. They are going through challenges they've never gone through before. When we step up, when we take the initiative to help them succeed, Aon will succeed.
Greg, I would like to ask you about your professional and leadership career. You started working on investment banking company and in the Federal Reserve Bank. Then you worked for 17 years at McKinsey, where you ended up heading the global insurance and financial services practice. And then after 17 years in consulting, you decide to move into management by taking the CEO position at Aon. And I would like to understand a little bit what went on your head in making this leadership transition. I mean, you were comfortable in your consulting position. Is this something that you had considered all along? Or did the right opportunity come about? And how do you know that you were ready to take that transition?
In terms of whether I'm ready, I'm sure there are people who would question that every day, no doubt. I would say, look, McKinsey was a wonderful place. I spent 17 years at McKinsey. It's a great professional services firm, and spent my nights and days really focused on how to build McKinsey as best I possibly could when I was at McKinsey, and it was a tremendous experience. The opportunity to move to Aon has also been a tremendous joy. I've been at Aon about 4 years, and it's been a real privilege for me to walk across Aon, a very global firm, as I said before, in countries, literally every country in the world you can imagine Aon is a part of, and being able to interact with colleagues in the context of how we shape a professional services firm around the topic of risk has been exhilarating. It's been incredibly exciting. And I'd watched insurance for a long time, as you described, having served the industry for the better part of 20 years, both insurance and banking. I'd watched Aon for over a decade. I'd watched it evolve as a firm. I had tremendous respect for Aon and what Pat Ryan had built, and as he was a founder and built the firm. And I saw just an incredible opportunity to have impact on the global economy. And as I joined Aon with very high expectations, I can tell you after 4 years, after spending time with clients around the world, my expectations and understanding what Aon really has to offer was blown away. It was substantially exceeded in terms of what I thought coming in, and it's been a real joy.
Let me ask a little bit about that transition process, because coming from outside the company, I mean, you came at the top job at Aon, where there were people inside, and in order to implement your vision for the company, you need to build a coalition of executives around you. You need to convince the company that you not only have the organizational authority, but you have the right vision for the company. How do you manage that effectively, given that you were coming from the outside? How do you build that coalition? How do you convey that vision?
Well, you know, first of all, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts with real trust and real understanding of each other. And the first thing I did, I start with the premise that Aon's a wonderful firm with tremendous global capability. And that was an easy premise. I believe that in my heart when I came to Aon. And sitting with my colleagues who had built Aon and understanding what they had in fact pulled together on behalf of clients, and then asking questions that they really helped answer to define the next chapter of Aon. It was with deep respect that we built what we built, and now the question is, what's next for Aon? How can Aon continue to evolve? And asking colleagues the question around, think about how far we've come over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. What's the next 10 years going to bring for Aon? What's the next 10 years going to bring? How do we make the next 10 years at Aon more compelling than the last 10 years at Aon? What's the strategy to do that? What's our approach? And we kept coming back to, what does it mean for clients? If we get this right, if we continue to build our firm, if we continue to invest in capability in ways others don't invest in capability, what does it mean for our clients? And a lot of excitement when you think about a client service organization, which is really what Aon is all about, and you start to define ways you can serve clients more effectively, it just starts to become a more compelling place. It builds on itself.
Yeah, I wanted to go in more in depth on this issue because when you joined Aon had a very strong founder culture. It has been led by Patrick Ryan. He started the company in the 60s and had managed the company for about 40 years. And so as an external CEO, I mean, part of your role was to provide new ideas, maybe some new directions. At the same time, you want to maintain continuity with the DNA of the company. How do you manage that continuity but change?
Well, first of all, Pat Ryan himself was incredibly instrumental in that. Pat founded Aon. He built Aon. He did some things over the course of a 20-year period, really consolidating an industry, which are quite extraordinary. And it was really Pat who understood and wanted to think about the next chapter in Aon and how it was going to evolve. So he's instrumental in making my transition work the way that it worked. Instrumental in helping me come into Aon and be successful inside of Aon with my colleagues. So start with it is a founder, but it's a unique founder who really had a vision for the firm and what he wanted to do. What I was able to, with my colleagues, do, and really, as I said before, they drove it. Greg Case didn't drive it, is really start to think about how do we evolve Aon? What's the right way to do it? How do we get more client-facing capability pulled together? How do we invest more in content? How do we invest more in ways to serve clients and do it in a way that helps our clients and helps our colleagues and helps our shareholders? And it was really a way to take what was the basis that was pulled together, the foundation that was pulled together through many, many acquisitions over a 20-year period, and think about the next chapter. So for me, it was, a deep honoring of what was there and understanding what's there. After all, that's one of the reasons I was excited about Aon. And how do we take that incredible foundation and do things over the next 5 years or 10 years that are at least as exciting or more exciting than had been done before? And that really was the philosophy, and that really was the approach. And working very closely with my colleagues, listening, understanding. And I spent tremendous amounts of time walking around Aon, listening to colleagues all around the world, on all four corners, of the planet, and talking to lots of clients and listening. What's great about Aon? What do we need to work on? By the way, forget about Aon in the industry. If we were going to be distinctive in ways no one's ever been distinctive, what would that look like? And I talk to 100 clients a month. You do that for a few years, and you've talked to 3,000 or 4,000 clients. You get real perspective, real detail on what it means to be great and what their clients' aspirations are. And those inputs, again, not Greg Case, those inputs shaped our strategy a great deal.
So as you mentioned, one of your characteristics as a CEO is that you are on the road a lot. You are on the road both inside the offices of Aon worldwide, as well as on the offices of your clients. Beyond what you do, how do you enable the company to develop leadership? What is your role on the leadership model within Aon, and how do you personally feel that you are involved in that leadership model?
One of the things we did do as we continue to evolve our firm is we stepped back and actually defined the Aon leadership model. There was a period of time, again, Aon came together, 400 plus acquisitions over 20 years. Some of the most incredible capability in the world. And again, having watched professional services for the better part of 20 years, I can tell you, coming into Aon, incredible capability. But we didn't necessarily have a common leadership model, a common people model. And we agreed that we were going to drive our progress around three principles: delivering distinctive client value that could be measured in terms of income, balance sheet, volatility. So if Aon helps a firm, their income gets better, their balance sheet gets stronger, the volatility is reduced. So everything around distinctive client leadership, as well as around being the destination of choice for the world's best talent. And finally, around operational excellence. On number two, destination of choice for the world's best talent, we didn't necessarily have a common leadership approach. So what did it mean to be great at Aon in Singapore versus great at Aon in France versus great at Aon in the UK or New York? We didn't have a common leadership model. So we, in fact, over the course of a year, put in place the Aon leadership model. It's a 5-part leadership model. It's grounded in 5 principles: client leadership, people leadership, collaboration, innovation, fiscal responsibility, how do you meet your commitments, and then a binary one called values. Do you meet our values or not? That 5-part leadership model is really what we use to define how we think about people coming in, how we train, how we reward behavior. It really has been a glue to start to help Aon think about people leadership. And in the context of that foundation has been very, very helpful as we thought about the next generation of leaders at Aon. But before Greg Case ever arrived, there was already a great set of leaders at Aon, and they've really been the ones who've driven our progress, and they've been the ones who have really been the catalyst to move our firm forward, and that really was the engine that's driven us. The Aon leadership model was a very, very helpful foundation to facilitate that.
Do you personally get involved in this leadership model? I mean, certainly you are a role model of these 5 dimensions, but in addition to that, do you personally get involved on the training, on the development of the leadership within the company?
Absolutely. In fact, the leaders at Aon, are basically player coaches. Everyone at Aon works with clients. We're a client service organization. Everyone in Aon works with clients, and we're a people organization. Everybody works with people. So I get as involved as I possibly can, probably more than my colleagues would like sometime, around training, around recruiting, around client leadership. Everywhere I can to stay close to what we really do is for me incredibly energizing and vital, just to stay close to what it means to help shape Aon as it evolves.
Now I would like to shift gears a little bit to focus about risk management as a topic and your experience as a leader one of the leading organizations on risk management. I mean, the current economic environment is worrying many people, and many organizations for the last 10, 15 years have been trying to develop a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship in their organizations. So that meant delegation, encouraging people to take risks. And then suddenly, with this crisis, we have to build a culture of risk management. Do you think that these 2 cultures are compatible? And if so, how can they be managed, companies that are good at taking risks, but also good at managing those calculated risks?
Javier, I'm going to take a slightly different approach than I think most are going to take on this topic. I don't see the difference. I don't see the dichotomy. I don't see the conflict. I absolutely understand what you're describing, and I think most of the world would see it as a conflict. We at Aon do not. Let me describe. Risk leadership, risk understanding is really about opportunity. Most view risk through the eyes of downside. You pick up the paper and you see what's gone on, that's risk, that's downside. Not the case. Leaders in companies who really understand risk see opportunities where other people do not. They take action when other firms do not. Risk becomes opportunity. Risk helps companies decide they want to invest in foreign countries that no one else want to invest in. Risk understanding, risk mitigation helps companies expand in ways they might not have otherwise expanded before. Risk understanding helps companies do capital allocation and make decisions around how to invest they might not have otherwise done before. So for us, risk is very much about opportunity. When we talk to clients about risk, it's not about ratcheting back. It's about investing and driving for the future, but doing it in a way that you increase the opportunity for return. So in fact, doing and achieving what others can achieve with less risk, with less volatility, is a very, very powerful thing. Being able to take action that others won't take because they're paralyzed and you're not, and you can move forward in a very thoughtful way, is very powerful. So we see it exactly the opposite. As companies and as clients become more interested in how to think about risk today, we talk to them about how to do that in a context of opportunity, not in the context of pulling back. That's why, for us, it's not a conflict. It's highly complementary. And as companies think about it as a conflict, we think they're going to do themselves a disservice. It should very much be about opportunity as much as it is about downside protection.
Now, in managing both sides, the entrepreneur, the opportunity and the risk, there are different approaches on how to implement risk management. And I would like us to discuss a little bit the recent experience in the banking sector. I would say the banking sector probably was leading in terms of the adoption of sophisticated quantitative risk management techniques. So, I mean, Basel, regulation, different regulations of capital requirements, value at risk. Yet, I mean, we see that many of these very sophisticated tools were not effective. How do you make sense of that reality? And were they not using the right approach to risk management, or were they ignoring or missing one dimension that was important? Well,
having spent time with banks a good portion of my professional life, I've watched them evolve, and I'm by no means an expert. By the way, it turns out there aren't too many experts out there, it appears. So financial institutions as a whole, and banks in particular, have incredible capability. They have incredible technique to really understand risk and tools to dive into risk. What you see happening, though, is it's very difficult inside of an organization to really understand integrated risk across the organization. Risk often evolves in very specific silos within the organization, and you make decisions in those silos, and you don't fully understand what's happening across those silos. And in the financial institutions world, you've clearly seen that's the case. Not only in the financial institutions, but also with the regulators and the rating agencies. All three, all of us have taken a view that's much more of a narrow view, and when you add up the narrow views, you have incredible precision and often inaccuracy. So you feel like you've got a great outcome and a great answer that's been tested through Monte Carlo simulation and every technique you can imagine to the third decimal point, but the answer is not quite right. And when you do that over a period of time in a silo, you don't get the right overall answer. One great statistic, if you think about the rating agencies, is imagine there are 10 to 12 AAA rated companies in the world today, or before, a year ago, not the case now. But there's 50 or 60,000 instruments that are AAA rated. Somehow, as you think about sort of how all that comes together, every one of those decisions, I can almost assure you, was made in a very good way, in a silo, in a vacuum. But when you step back and look at it holistically, it's really hard to reconcile the two. Same is true inside of institutions. Individual decisions get made with high degree of analytics and technique, but when you look across the organization, you get an overall outcome and an answer that's not always the right answer.
So it seems that probably what is needed is a more organizational embedded approach to risk management rather than isolate, integrate. What solutions, what suggestions do you give your clients about how to achieve that process?
We often spend time with clients around the organizational implications, how you make decisions that drive better performance. Because in the end, when you think about all the different discussions that you can have out there on risk, if at the end of the day you don't make a set of decisions which provides a better set of performance outcomes, income, balance sheet volatility, to name three, you haven't really accomplished what you want to accomplish. And one of the impediments of that is organizationally, how organizations think about risk together. Is it owned by the CFO? Is it owned by the risk manager, the treasurer, the CEO, the operating leaders? Where is risk really owned in an organization, and how do you collectively make the right set of choices? We often spend time with clients on how they think about that. Many times clients have a great answer, but it can't be implemented because of the organizational challenges in the context of that. And that's a shame because they have everything right. They really just don't have the organization set up to accomplish what they need to on behalf of their decision making. We often talk to clients about that.
Beyond the role of the management, there is also an issue of governance, the role of the board in providing a monitoring and assessment of the risk of the organization. So you mentioned an uncertainty about who owns the risk management agenda. Who owns the risk management between the management and the board? I mean, do you think that this is mainly a board responsibility, management is a shared responsibility? Well,
I can't opine on board governance. I would say certainly not an expert on that either, among other things. But boards basically have decisions, oversight around CEO leadership, oversight around company ownership, oversight around strategy, depending on which side of the ocean you're sitting on in terms of overall agendas. And boards more and more are being asked to, or being required to, understand overall risk. What are the issues that could actually change the course of a company? And that's something that boards have to be able to look into and understand, and we're seeing that more and more today.
Well, one of the things that we are seeing on both sides of the Atlantic is, especially given the economic environment, is a tendency to look for increased regulation as a way to solve some of the financial crisis and economic crisis. Yet this is something that we have had experience. So we have in the United States Sarbanes-Oxley, that was a solution supposedly to the Enron crisis. What is your perspective on the effectiveness of regulatory solutions to problems of risk management?
Well, I again would be very careful to put the causes to the current situation we're in on any one thing, and certainly wouldn't put it on a failure of regulation, or put it on a failure of leadership, or a failure of approach. But really, when you put all together, we all bear responsibility across the board for all the different pieces. And understanding how regulators and rating agencies can play a more significant role in helping industry make the right set of choices in an integrated way, you have to imagine is going to be part of the outcome, certainly in the near term, a critical part of the outcome.
So in terms of the ideal risk management organization? I mean, if you could see 5, 10 years down the road, the company that is going to lead practice in terms of its ability to manage risk in an integrated way, manage both the technical part as well as the organizational dimension, what would that company look like in terms of the management and the leadership?
Yeah, Javier, I don't think there's going to be a quintessential kind of prototype that everyone says, here's the approach, fit into the approach and you're done. Right? It's too complex a world. It's, companies are in very, very different situations. So again, reflecting on what Aon does, we serve companies all around the world in every category and every sector of the economy. Small, medium, large, the most sophisticated companies in the world across every sector. And you watch these companies evolve, you understand you need a very tailored approach given what their situations are. However, there will be a set of principles that you can imagine you might fall back on. And one is a real understanding, a holistic understanding of the things that are going to impact, guess what? Income, balance sheet strength, and volatility. What are the items in the context of our firm where we stand right now that are going to impact that the most, and our ability to sustain as an ongoing firm, an ongoing company? A real grounding and understanding of that is critical. Does your firm have that? Yes or no? And having had that understanding clearly laid out, what are the items that are going to impact our success against a set of measures? How are we going to manage that? How are we going to operate in our firm in an integrated way? Not just from a risk standpoint or operational risk standpoint, but overall, how are we going to do that? And then how are we going to provide governance and oversight against that process? You can imagine that, by the way, you can operate those three, the diagnostic, how you're going to actually get it done, how you're going to provide oversight in very different ways. But winners, those who use risk in a way to drive performance and attack opportunity, are going to have all three of those areas in the context of what they do, would be our guess.
So I think that there is a great opportunity from where we are to this idea situation. I think it's a great opportunity both from educational institutions as well as for consulting companies into developing both perspectives, tools, and capabilities on risk management. Greg Case, thank you very much for participating in this Leadercast.
Javier, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.